local economy. The information that I'm providing you tonight is from a combination of sources. The primary source is the Federal Reserve Board and their economic outlook. Their findings are in general that the gross domestic product has weakened significantly in the fourth quarter of '08. The recent reports turn to a sluggish outlook for economic growth and continued price pressure in the areas of food, energy, and imports. Generally, this is a result of the weakening dollar. The real gross domestic product slowed from 4.9% growth to an anemic 0.6% in the fourth quarter of this year, of 2007. All major components of the gross domestic product softened. They weakened significantly in the fourth quarter over what their performance had been in the previous portion of 2007. Housing continued to drag be a depressant on the economy, and surprisingly, for the first time, net inventories were more negative than the housing market. This is significant because inventories on hand are an indication of what business people think the economic outlook is. And as inventories decrease, they're ordering less supplies to be on hand. So there's a sense that, a pessimistic sense among major businesses across the nation. I want to talk a little bit more about the housing market. The housing market is expected to deteriorate further. Construction indicators weakened more than had been expected in December, and particularly in single-family housing. The permits fell 8.8% in new home sales, and an additional 4% over the 12.6% that had been projected in November. Overall, the indicators still point to further home sale declines and deterioration in the sector. Home prices plunged to a record 8.9% nationally, and that's the first time that a decrease of that magnitude has ever occurred in the time that they've been keeping records. San Diego was the second largest decline. The largest was in Orlando, Florida. Our average was a 13.4% drop in real estate values. In addition, the credit markets have significantly tightened. Commercial real estate loans are going through a major overhaul right now in terms of the lending criteria, and it's expected that overhaul will continue and that credit will be more difficult to secure both for home purchasers and commercial borrowers. In summary, the Federal Reserve Board has concluded that while there's still growth, the national economy is showing a trend of weak but positive growth. There's some concern that some of these findings may be politically motivated, and that there's a strong pressure being put on some of the reporting agencies, particularly the federal ones, to avoid calling it a recession for political reasons. But this is their conclusion on a national level. Now in Southern California, there are three major issues that are contributing to what most analysts are calling a soft economic outlook for 2008. Not surprisingly, the housing data is some of the weakest since the start of the residential downturn, which most analysts now believe started 2 years ago. Home sale starts and prices are still falling locally and nationally, giving rise to fears that the correction is just in the middle of this real estate correction and still has a way to run. And I'll show you some things later on that I think will confirm that. The second major issue is that this weakness was triggered by stress in the mortgage market, and generally the whole revamping of the credit market is underway right now. In fact, major lenders like Wells Fargo have redlined major portions of Southern California in terms of there being declining housing markets and significantly tightening their lending criteria. On top of that, major Wall Street financial institutions have found themselves severely undercapitalized. You saw that particularly in some of our mortgage lenders like AMBAC and MBIA, some of the difficulty that we encountered in getting some of our bond insurance secured. We saw direct evidence of that. The subprime mortgages in their portfolios has caused basically all of the major financial institutions to be downgraded in terms of their financial capacity. Higher risk and uncertainty has led to stock downgrades and lending tightening across the board. And number 3, home foreclosures are on the rise. 12% of subprime mortgages in the United States are delinquent at least, and this is across the country, are delinquent at least 60 days, and 7% are in foreclosure. A high concentration of these loans is in Southern California. And I wanted to show you this graph. I apologize, we had to take this out of the book. But this, actually, Ed Finino found this for me. This gives you an indication. I know it's a little hard to read, but these numbers are in billions of dollars. On the side, and this gives you the dates, if you can see this, as in, this was 6/1 of 07. This basically gives you the notice of default filings across the country. It gives you an indication of the magnitude of the growth in these default filings, and these are by month. This is basically all of 07 starting right here, and the trend is continuing. The numbers of foreclosures are expected to rise during the first half of 2008, when a significant number of subprime mortgages are going to adjust their mortgage rates. This is going to place more stress on homeowners. Let's go to the next graphs. This is one of the most interesting graphs, and I think it's one that really gives us the best idea of what's going to happen in the future. This is $800 billion of subprime mortgages that are going to reset. And these are the dates when it's going to reset. I put that red line up there to indicate we're really in December right now. December through June of 08. You have on a monthly basis between $45 billion and $40 billion of subprime loans whose mortgage rates are going to adjust. In other words, their adjustable mortgage rates are going to occur. That's when the most stress occurs. You don't see a fall off, which is the first precursor to a bankruptcy. You don't see the fall off of that until basically the end of 2008. That's one of the economic issues that's of significant concern right now. Finally, there are some positive indicators in Southern California. Job growth in the region is trending upward. The economy has diversified significantly since the late 90s, and it's diversified in some areas that are consumer dependent in terms of high tech, biotech, and other areas. So that's helped to moderate the impact of that. In fact, this is one of the few good news slides. It gives you the payroll in Southern California. If you look at the blue line, which is San Diego, Carlsbad, San Marcos, basically our region, versus the red, Santa Ana, Anaheim, Oakland, Fremont, Hayward, we have consistently trended up, and the expectations are that that trend in employment will continue.